Greetings, Dumela, Sawabona, Sakpase, Namaste, Abshin, Dubra Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Buenas noches, bonsoir, what's good? Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Doria Larrier Show. This is season 3, episode 15, and I am great and excited to be back with you all to share another positive word with an inspirational leader who inspires, instructs, and impacts people to live their lives a little better than they did the day before. Tonight's conversation is going to be with Andrea Henderson, and the topic that we will be talking about is one of my loves, a new classes in session where we think, teach, and learn outside of the box. So I want to give you a little bit of a conversation about who Andrea is. She is, now, of course, it would happen that I misplace it. How was that? Here we go. So Andrea Henderson is a partner in the life science, healthcare, diversity, and CEO and board search practice groups at DHR Global, which is a Forbes best executive recruiting firm and an Inc. 5000 best place to work. She helps private equity and VC-backed biotech, value-based care, digital and health companies and hospitals hire transformational C-suite and board leaders. Andrea is also a startup company advisor and venture capital investor. Now, what we're really going to delve into tonight is 2 subtopics, and that's the importance of having more Black people and women in executive level roles, board of director positions, and as investors, especially in healthcare. And you know how healthcare sometimes isn't fair to people who are melanated. And how a mammogram led her to becoming a venture capital investor. And please welcome to our seats, Miss Andrea Henderson. Greetings.
Greetings. Hello. Hello. How are you?
I am fantastic. Little screen flub here, but we're all together. So I want to welcome you to the show. And first, let me give like a lovely disclaimer that Andrea and I, approximately 5 years ago, during this month, we met on these internet streets in a group that I will always reference as Team 21, amazing shepreneurs who decided to take on a challenge, and we definitely survived. We not only survived, but we thrived.
We thrive.
We did, and we spent a number about 3 weeks just literally putting our content out there and like getting out of our own head and thinking and pushing ourselves and saying that our word is not only good enough, but it's right enough for these spaces. And out of that comes these conversations. So Andrea, welcome to the Digital Couch. Welcome to the Doria Larrier Show. And let's get into this. So,
I'm ready.
oh my goodness, it's been a long time coming, and it's also been a long journey. So, this, for those of you who will catch us on the replay, this is approximately the end of September. And so we are encroaching upon October. And October, at least in the US, I'm sure in other places, there is a focus on healthcare, which is the industry that Andrea is in. But she has a different connection to healthcare that is literally and figuratively very personal. So, Andrea, why don't you start us off and let us know what happened and how did that deepen your understanding and commitment to the healthcare industry?
Yeah, so I've been working in the healthcare space for over a decade. Um, I've worked in pharma biotech. I worked for um, Pharmacia, which was acquired by Pfizer, and then I worked for Genentech, the oldest biotech in the country. I worked for Novartis. also worked in led talent acquisition for two hospital systems. So I had a lot of experience in healthcare. I've been a up close and personal witness to some of the health disparities and have learned about many more ways that people of color in particular and women um, don't get the care that they deserve because of who they are. And so, I am definitely a big health equity champion and have really worked also to lessen health disparities. And that is my day job as an executive talent strategist. So talent acquisition, talent management, succession planning, to shorten, as an abbreviation, I'm a headhunter and I help companies um, hire transformational talent. In my company, we have three lines of business: executive search, we do individual contributor and emerging leader search, and we do leadership consulting. Um, and in my spare time, I advise startup companies. I have a passion for helping underrepresented and what Arlen Hamilton calls underestimated founders um, get funding and just support, because I really believe that a lot of those innovations need to come to the market. There's a huge need. And as an investor, I believe that many of those innovations will realize outpaced returns. But my journey to investing was atypical. Um, I I say that a mammogram is what got me interested in investing. Well, not really interested. It's actually what made it happen. So in December of 2022, I had a mammogram, and like most of my mammograms over the last 10 years, they saw something on the mammogram. So I said, "Well, you always see something, okay." And then I they wanted me to come back for a sonogram ultrasound. No problem. I do that often, and I came back, and then they said, "Well, we want you to do a biopsy." So for those of you who have not had a biopsy, they take what looks like a straw and stick it. Well, and for me, because they did biopsy the breast, and for those of you who are sensitive, this is going to be a little graphic, but they take the straw and they stick it in your breast, and then they suck out some skin cells so they can test it to see if there's anything present. So they they stuck the straw in 2 times in each breast, and then they tested those cells, and then they said they saw something again. So they wanted me to come back for another mammogram. So for those of you who don't know what a mammogram is, it's two metal plates that they put your breast in between and they squish it like a pancake. And so I said, no, you can't do a mammogram on me again. I just had like a minor surgery. I'm still raw. I mean, for X number of years, over a decade, maybe two, but I won't necessarily admit to that. You've been squeezing me like a pancake, and I've been like, okay, you know what? That's how it works. That's the deal. Um, you know, this is the standard of care. And so I'm rolling with it. But now, after a surgical procedure, you want to do it again? I'm like, no, there's got to be a better way. And the technician was like, no, there's not a better way. This is what they do. So I said, is this what they do to men to test for testicular cancer? Do they take their balls, scrotum, and squeeze them between two metal plates? And she's like, I don't think so. Well, then there's got to be a better way, because there's no way, as much as men complain about that prostate exam, there's no way they're getting their nuts squeezed, because we would have heard about it. So some man,
Loud and clear. Actually, they would have changed the test.
That's what I'm saying. Some man sat in some boardroom and said, this is not acceptable, and we're going to find another way. We're going to create
Right.
another test. We're going to fund the research so we can find it
Mm.
so that my balls don't need to be squeezed. Now, I'm saying, where's the women in the room that says this is barbaric? And I told the woman, and I feel a little bad for her because I know she was just doing her job.
Let her have it.
I said, history is not going to be kind to you.
Wow.
History is going to look back 20, 50, 100 years from now and say, you did that to women? Really? That's the best that you could do? It's barbaric. So it was at that point that I said, I got to stop looking for other people to save me. And I need to be in the room. It needs to be my dollars because I can't expect some man to put up dollars to save my boobies, right? As a priority. If it comes between his cojones and my boobies, he's choosing his cojones, and I don't blame him. So I got to put my money up.
Put your money where your
Yeah,
breast
put my
is.
money where my tatas are. That's exactly what it was. Um, and so I decided. So anyway, that's what happened. So December, I'm 22. I had a mammogram, and then in January, I had the biopsy. I had the sonogram, I had the biopsy, I had the mammogram, and ultimately I got a breast cancer diagnosis. And so uh, in April, I made my first venture investment. And I got to tell you, I am not a wealthy woman. But the one thing that got the money out of my grubby little hands, that tight grip that I had on my $10, was the fact that I didn't want anybody, well, I didn't want to go through it again. I didn't want anybody else to have to go through it again. I don't have a daughter, and I'm not having any more kids, but I don't want my granddaughter, I don't want my nieces, I don't want anybody else to have to go through it. I want us to find a better way
Right.
for the
So,
next generation.
let me ask this question. Up until this very second, and I mean this very second, whenever I heard the word venture capital, I literally thought that the person had to have, and I kid you not, the number in my head was like $100,000. Like I didn't think anything less than maybe $50,000, but no, nothing less than $50,000 that you would be putting into some research. And so when you just said $10, I'm sure it wasn't $10,
Whatever.
right? But when I hear that, I'm only hearing it from people who make, I'll just say for the record, like goo gobs of money, whatever that is for you.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I'm sure you can have much less than $50,000, more than
Yeah,
$10, but
yeah.
that it is accessible to more
Hmm.
people if they heard what the possibilities are. And I hope
Yeah.
we can, sort of peek into that today.
Yeah. It's a great question. So, to be a venture investor, you have to be an accredited investor, and there's three criteria. Um, there's a certain dollar amount that you have to earn in income, or there is a certain net worth that you have to have, or you have to take a series of tests, right? So you have to
Oh,
be,
is that like the Series 7?
yeah, all those series numbers, yes.
Okay,
To,
okay,
to, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to protect the little person from these risky investments.
okay.
And in fact, there is some legislation now that the SEC is proposing to make it actually more difficult to become an accredited investor. When in fact, and some others believe that we need to make it more accessible rather than less accessible. And I can explain why. But
Okay. Wait, hold on a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself on mute, but what I'm actually doing is I'm going to be taking notes. So if you could actually just repeat those three ways, or three, you know what I mean? Let me
the
just
three
pass this
criteria
paper.
for an accredited investor.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So go.
So there is a dollar amount that you need to earn in salary, or there is a net worth, and I think the net worth amount cannot include your primary residence. So it's your net worth. And the third way is by taking exams by virtue of your demonstrated expertise in the field of finance and investing. Um, and that is to become an accredited investor. Now, that said, there are lots of crowdfunding out there. So people think of like GoFundMe, but there's some other ways to participate. There's crowdfunding sites where you can literally invest as little as, well, I don't know if they're $10, but many of them will let you invest as little as $100. But if you think about it, and one of the reasons why I'm making this appeal, particularly to Black people and to women, we're already doing it. If you think about it, little Ray up the street wants to start a lemonade stand, and you're like, here, baby, take this money, go buy some cups, go buy some lemons, right? And that is the typical, just origin of investing. So you want to, and especially early stage investing, where there's somebody that you believe in, there's somebody that you support, somebody that you want to give a chance. You'll say, here, I want you to have a chance. And the stats are really bad. If you think about less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to women. Um, Black women get less than 0.1%, 0.1%. They get less in venture funding. Latino women also less than 0.1%. Um, and what does that mean? That means that our dreams are not being funded. They're not being supported. It means that our ideas are not coming into the world. They're not being born. So, and typically that means that our problems are not being solved, because who's going to solve Black women's problems? Black women. Who's going to solve Latino women's problems? I mean, yes, there could be some enlightened white men sitting in a room saying, you know what? I think Black women needs more skin tones, you know, for their pantyhose or whatever. And that's a really trite example.
Right. Actually, the most current one is point shoes.
Oh yes,
Misty Copeland, right? Shout out to Misty Copeland, who said,
yes.
hello, we need point
Listen,
shoes that match
these
our
pink
hues.
shoes
Come
are not
on.
nude for me.
It's no big deal.
And
Add
so
some color to that.
I was a I was in a program. I don't think we graduated, but anyway, it's called Pipeline Angels, and it's angel investing. So angel investing is even earlier than venture. Angel investing is literally the, I believe in you. I want to see your idea come to life. It seems like a good idea. I don't know if I'm going to get my money back, but I'm going to take a chance, right? And so a group of us got together through this program and um, evaluated several different companies. And some of my colleagues in that program invested in a company that made nude shoes. And I don't want to say for Black people, but for many shades, because nude up until this point has always been very pink. And so the shoes that they made, and the company is called Commune, Kahmune, founded by a Black woman. They make nude shoes for a wide range of skin tones. And while you might think, well, what's so important about having that come to the market? Like, why would I put my money behind that? Well, the technology can be used for other things. And one of the things that's most interesting to me is that it can be used for prosthetics. So you don't have Black people out there with pink limbs. You don't have uh, you know Black women out there with you know brown Black women with peach breasts because they
Right.
needed a prosthetic, or a
Wow.
or a peach leg.
And
And
so I
so
just put up, I found commune, and it came up with the Becky pump, which is standard in all of our closets. And yes, the hues are absolutely beautiful. I hope it flies. I hope it takes off.
right,
I didn't
and I think
purchase shoes from them.
we deserve to see ourselves reflected in point shoes, in 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 um in fashion shoes, and in prosthetics, in band-aids, in in foundation. I mean, the technology can be applied to many different many different, it has many different applications. For example, for me, I had to have surgery. I did have surgery. So I made my investment in April of 2023. I had my surgery in May of 2023, and I have scar tape, and I wear scar tape, and so part of the surgery involved an incision from one side to the other side to reconstruct, um, and that scar tape is supposed to be skin colored, and so I really wanted to be like it's psychologically more comforting the more that you can kind of feel
Like it's a part of you.
like it's a part of you, like it's
And
actually covering something, like you're healing, and both emotionally and physically.
so, right, I want to pause there for a moment because
Mhm.
I want to almost role play the conversation. You don't have to participate, but I'm
Mhm.
going to do
Mhm.
it. So, you're giving me this scar tape, and which is for you, maybe it's like a band-aid, but it doesn't. It's not my skin color. It's tape. It's under your clothes. Who cares who's going to see? I'm going to see. Well, you're wearing clothes. Why does it matter? So, how about if the scar tape or if the band aid was the color of chocolate? Well, why would it be the color of chocolate? Maybe because I'm the color of chocolate? Would you wear it? Uh, I don't think so. That's exactly why I want scar tape that kind of looks like my hue. Well, I
But
don't know if we have money for that. Yes, we do, because we have angel investors who are going to put money into flesh colored materials.
yeah, yeah, so that it could be like that. Although my conversation was with Amazon, and there's no conversation because you got one choice. This is it. Boom. That's it. Um, and I will tell you, when you talk about who's going to see it, more people have seen my boobs in the last 5 months than in the last 45 years before that. Everybody's like, let me
Ooh.
see them. Let me see how they look. Let me see how they're healing. And I'm like, okay, here you go. People show up my door, and I open my shirt. Hey, everybody wants to look. Um, that's what it is. So people see it. A lot of people see it. And it was summer. So a lot of people saw it. But that's not the point. The conversation that I'm thinking about goes more like this. So, Bob, we have about $50 million in our fund, and we need to make a decision about what we're going to do with it. Okay, Jim, let's see what who's going to pitch us. And here comes Dorielle talking about kinky hair products. That's not a thing. Next, and here comes uh, Barbara talking about menopause supplements. It's not a big thing. Next, and here comes Joan talking about talking about you know uh, I don't know. I mean,
Hold on. Another what?
I'm sorry.
Another what?
Another thing like you know um, gosh, I'm going blank, but um, hair loss, and then
Okay.
Jim and then hair loss, and then Jim and Bob. Shout out to Kenyatta Nicole and her Nora's hair products. So
Yes, yes, yes.
she's pitching Nora's for hair loss, And then Jim and Bob sit up and say, I want to hear more about that, you know, because it affects them.
Because it affects them. Got it. Because it affects
So
them.
here's the next conversation. Now there's Jim and Bob and Andre and Dorielle in the room, and we're saying, yeah, Jim and Bob, that's a thing. And do you know the percentage of women in the world that have kinky or curly hair? So yes, not only is it a thing, but it's going to outpace. It's going to give you outsized returns because the majority of the world has kinky or curly hair.
Mm,
So I think that we're going to take our dollars because we get a vote, and I vote that we put it in the Kiki curly hair thing, or I vote that we put it towards menopause because there are
got it.
so many women that are suffering, and there's nothing out there because it hasn't been discussed. It's an underinvested space, and these are the conversations that we need to have with Jim and Bob. We need to enlighten them and tell them it's important, and you can't have that conversation unless you're in the executive suite or the boardroom or you're an investor.
Got it. And so now that something that you just said, it reminds me of when, not often, but when I watch Shark Tank, right? With like the lip bar. Why would we want to have those bright and outlandish colors? Because there are people who would wear them. Then he makes that horrible comment, and then lip bar soars when he thinks no one's going to buy that. Yes, they do, and they bought it big. Got it. So, right. So you can't have that conversation, or that conversation can't move unless you're in the room. And not only are you in the room, but that you speak from the perspective of the background that at least your skin says you represent. Why do I say
Your
that?
skin or your DNA or whatever it is.
Well, and so I'm saying that because there are a couple of things that I've seen pass through the market, and I perfect example. So there's some I'm an educator, and one of my colleagues came in the other day and she said, um, "Oh, I have this. mm, let's call it a puppet. Let's just call it a puppet. I have this puppet that one side of it will show that the response or the behavior, let's keep it simple, the behavior of the students is like on par, and like it would give a thumbs up. The other side, the other color,
Mhm.
would represent if their behavior is not on par. The one that she brought in had, let's say it was lime green on one side.
Mhm.
Now there were about 20 choices, and it was black on the other.
Of course.
So now you know me. I just stood there and I looked and I said, "Oh." I was silent for a moment because I was trying to figure out, Doriel, fix your face. Don't lay this person out. You're at work. So I said, "That's interesting." I said, "I want you to think about something." I said, "Why is it, why, what's the side that would show it's, not a on task?"
Mhm.
And she goes, "Oh, this side." And then she looked at me as if to say, like, why was I pausing? So I said, I wonder who was in the room who decided that that was an appropriate color to represent who's not doing well. And she wasn't getting it yet. And I said, I was trying to be nice, right? Like, how many other things do you see that have a connotation to black that is negative? And
Right.
I tried to keep a very straight face at that moment. And then she looked at me and I kind of tilted my head like this.
But you know
And
the
she
thing about
goes,
it is you can't expect people to understand if they haven't lived it. So really it
right.
is a matter of educating. You can't be angry.
And I wasn't.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
I wasn't. And so then I said, so I want you to, and then I came to this conversation and I
yeah.
said, I'm interested to know
Hmm.
how many people of marginalized communities
Hmm.
work for that company, not just work for that company,
Hmm.
but are in the decision making positions in that company to say that these, let's say, melanin richer hues, I don't want to say darker, but melanin richer hues
Hmm.
are the ones that are the sides that are negative. And she said, I never would have thought. I said, I know you didn't, but that's why I'm here. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm going to ask you. I want you to choose one where the two colors are neutral. So then guess what? She chose one that was pink on one side and blue on the other. The blue one was the one that was negative side. I said, I want you to think about that. Why would pink be good and blue be? And she
Right.
goes, I never. And I said, that's why you have me as your colleague. Choose something that has totally no connection to gender or race.
Right. 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 Yeah.
But
I mean,
who let that slide? That's my question. Who let that slide? Who was in that C-suite decision making position?
yeah. And so this is how we have to keep showing up and keep being in the conversation, and 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 not expect all the time that we're gonna protest or march or say after the fact. Like, be in the room and and push the um, conversation in that direction. So I just want to also say that while women and black folks and Latino women and black women receive such a minuscule percentage of
Mm,
future funding, research has shown that diverse startups return higher ROI to investors, and that women investors are generally better than men because our EQ is higher. But if you think about it, many investors are looking for the next hot thing, like what you know, just like you know, what can they discover? What is the trend that no one has figured out yet? But if you keep shutting black women up, if you keep shutting black men up, if you shut the Latino founders and the women founders, then our solutions aren't coming to market.
right.
So my position is, if you want to look for the hot new thing that nobody's paying attention to, look to black women, look to black people, look to Latino, look to the underestimated founder, because we have to try so much harder to get in the room and to be heard, that if you start listening to us, you will get this idea about a solution that the world needs and that nobody has paid attention to. Um, it was only 30 years ago that it was required for women to be included in clinical trials. So prior to 30 years ago, all the drugs and all the devices were tested on men
Wow, I gotta
and then
write that down.
adapted to women. So, you know, women are really more than having babies and nursing babies. We have more than tatas and boom boom. So our DNA is different. So are the devices that you create for patients and the medication that you create for patients needs to be different for women. And we don't need to be an afterthought. We need to be included. Now, this is not medicine, but let me talk to you about an everyday scenario. When you go into the bathroom and you put your hands under the faucet and it's supposed to turn on? Well, that technology doesn't read dark skin the same way it reads light skin. So if you ever have an issue like getting the faucet to come on, tap your neighbor who is not melanated and say, "Hey, can you turn on this faucet for me, because this technology doesn't work on my skin the way it works on yours." So I would have just appreciate if you could turn this faucet on for me. One of the most egregious is the oximeter. The little thing that they put on your finger to test your blood oxygen level. Um, it also doesn't read dark skin the same way it reads lighter skin. That's one of the reasons why people were having so many problems during the pandemic. So many black people were dying because you would put on the oximeter and it would read that our oxygen level was normal when it wasn't, because our scale is different. So we
So
could. Mhm.
right. So when did I just wanted to put that up? So I did find the quote. It was between 1989 and 1983. Inclusion of women in clinical trials was National Institute of Health Policy, but it was not law. In 1993, Congress wrote the NIH inclusion policy into federal law through a section in the NIH Revitalization Act in 1993, Public Law 103-43, titled Women and Minorities as Subjects in Clinical Research. And then my next is actually the actual link. So people, if you are looking for this, it's right in the show notes in Facebook and in YouTube.
I love the way Doriel's
Fabulous.
fact checking me while I'm talking. She's like, "Let me
Oh,
see if what she's talking about is right."
Oh, I know you're right, but I always want my listeners to know that this isn't, we didn't pull this out of our back pocket. That
Mhm,
here it is in Google University, and
mhm.
here's what you can do. That's
So,
fabulous.
while you're Googling, Google the
Will do.
research on oximeters in black and dark skin.
Got it.
Yeah.
Continue talking. I'll find it.
Yeah. And so, what I'm saying is that we need to align our dollars with our values. And so, um, I'm actually giving a keynote speech at a femtech conference, October 4th, which I would love to share the link with you. But just to give you a little preview, one of the things I was thinking about when I'm writing the speech is like, who who are you doing it for? And whatever you're doing, who are you doing it for? And so for me, what if that investment that I make saves my daughter-in-law, because I don't have a daughter, like I said. What if that investment that I make goes to some life-saving therapy or device or something that's going to make someone's quality of life better for my daughter-in-law or my granddaughter? And
Hmm.
what if I didn't make it? What if I was too scared and said, you know what, I don't have money to lose, I don't have money to waste, I don't, and now my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter has to live a life of suffering because I didn't want to invest in the research or the product or the service or the therapy, you know, 20 years before.
So this is an example of putting our money where our mouth is, right? So we can talk the talk. Oh yeah, that's interesting. That's something that should be done. Even if I only have, let's say, 200, 500, $1,000, I can
And
talk.
I'm, yeah, like I said, you're doing it anyway. You're supporting, but what you're doing, most people are doing is they're supporting nonprofits. And listen, I think that's great. Support the nonprofits, support the community efforts, support the grassroots efforts. But if you invest, those things scale
Mhm.
and you can have a greater impact. All I'm saying is consider it. It's also another asset class that if you are able to take advantage of, you have stocks, you have bonds. Um, Now you have this other asset, you have real estate. And if you have access to it, you have another asset class that's called, you know, venture, private equity, whatever. Um, so it helps for us to be significant, and usually those can be, there's a lot of risk, but then there's also a lot of reward. Um,
And please make sure that you somehow send me that link so I can put it in the chat to share.
oh yeah, I will send it to you. And there's one more thing that I want to tell you about my story, and this is a little bit all over the place, and I'm not telling it in a linear way because I'm saving the thunder for the keynote, and I hope folks are able to make it. It's in Manhattan at Hudson Yards. Um, but so April, I said that I made the my first investment. I invested in a venture fund, which is not in one company. It's a fund that invests in many companies. The fund is focused on women founders. Um, and then May, I had my surgery, and then June, I was on a billboard in Times Square ringing the closing bell at the NASDAQ. I mean, God works in mysterious ways.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't know that? How did you miss that?
No, but tell me, but say why to the people who don't know. Say why.
Yeah, so the investment that I made in the organization, which is called How Women Lead, it's a shameless plug for the organization, which is focused on amplifying women and also um, encouraging women to invest. We have this new table campaign, and you can check me out on LinkedIn or anywhere on the socials, and I'll be talking about it. But the organization was invited to ring the closing bell. And I was like, you know, a month, maybe 6 weeks after my surgery, I'm like, I don't care if you have to wheel me in on a stretcher, I'm gonna be there. And I had all my apparatus, my my gear, my protective gear, and I showed up and I took the protective gear off for the pictures. And it's funny because I met some women there, really impressive ballers that were so extremely protective of me, and they blocked and tackled. They did more than what Deion Sanders' son did in that
Oh,
Colorado game. But and they, you know, were great. And so I was able to participate, and and it's just amazing. And I feel like the dollars are having that multiplier effect for women because as an entrepreneur, um, sometimes you just need that, $100 for that tool, or
oh boy.
fifty
Yep.
dollars for some advertising, or whatever. Now, granted, the checks are bigger, um, and so but there are different stages. And I guess what I'm saying is, while I am encouraging people to be in the boardroom, in the C-suite, you know, an investor, I'm also encouraging my son who doesn't meet those any of those three criteria to get started thinking like an investor, to um, to take some risks, to put some money aside, to join some crowdfunding campaigns, to develop the mindset of an investor and the sensibilities to support Black folks, women, and immigrants. My personal investing interests are women's health, healthy aging, and future of work. And I have a very special passion for supporting Black women founders, Black founders, women founders, and immigrant founders. Um, the underestimated, like Harlan says. And I believe that there's a moral obligation, but I also believe it's really good business. And I believe that I will get outpaced returns. Um, and so it's not charity. It's not charity at all. Um, so
Got it. So I found your link. Let me put it up here. And this, so this is the link, lu.ma/NYC Femtech.
correct,
So this is the event that you're keynoting for.
correct, yeah, correct.
Fabulous.
We're gonna have that conversation. And so, Doriel, there's one more thing that I want to say that is
Sure.
really part of my appeal, and that is who I said, who are you doing it for, and who are you telling your story to?
Mm, see, you're actually cycling me to the thing that I am going to be promoting as well, which is great. Go ahead. Who are you right? Why, who and why? Who you talking to and why you doing it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that is because, um, when you are made aware of a loved one transitioning to to be to the realm of the ancestors, it is impolite. It is considered impolite to ask, how do they die, right? If the family doesn't share. Um, if someone's in the hospital, you want to support it, but you don't want to get all up um, in their business. You want to support. And I guess what I'm saying is that we need to share it. And while you might say personal, it's your business, whatever. So many of these things are hereditary. It could even be lifestyle, but in families, your lifestyle habits are passed down too.
Yes.
And so we need to talk about it. And so we need to stop talking about,
What
grandma,
happens in this house stays in this house.
or grandma had a touch of sugar, or
Right.
what?
So and so is sickly.
Yeah, yeah, like
What that mean? What does that mean?
right. So um when I was diagnosed, so my mom has dementia, and my grandmother had dementia, so I've always been really on the lookout for signs of dementia and really interested in the literature around Alzheimer's and um, really looking out for the signs. I'm like, ooh, am I taking too long to get this thought out of my brain? Um, but I never really paid attention to cancer because in my mind it didn't run in my family. I know my paternal grandmother had breast cancer, but she was treated and she was fine and she didn't die of it. But what I found out after I got diagnosed is like all my father's siblings had some form of cancer, and that breast cancer is deep in my family, very close. I got a genetic test for the BRCA gene, which is a very aggressive genetic gene.
Right. And
Um,
wait, how do you spell that again?
it's BRCA. I don't even know what it stands for.
All right. I'm gonna look it up and then put in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I came back negative for that. Thank God. It didn't change the way I decided to treat it, but it was disturbing to find out that I had this family history that I wasn't aware of because nobody talked about it. So I make sure I had my family reunion in July and I went and I'm like, everybody's going to know because y'all need to know. They specifically told me when I got tested that I needed to tell my niece, right? They specifically told me, which I was not aware. So my grandmother had breast cancer. My father had prostate cancer. And what they said is that while men can have breast cancer, typically the way that breast cancer is passed from woman to man, man to woman, is from breast to prostate to breast. Now I told you I don't have a daughter, I have a son. So now my son needs to be especially aware about his risk for prostate cancer because if your mother has breast cancer, then you're at risk for prostate. Your father had prostate, and the daughter's at risk for breast. I didn't know that. Um, and so I feel like we need to have these conversations in our families, and I don't know about other communities, but I know Black folks are notoriously bad for talking about this stuff. And and I'm not advocating you share all your personal business. I know this is probably the age of TMI, but the fact of the matter is that who do you tell your story to and why? Who are you going to help? Who are you going to save um, by telling your story? And I will tell you that I was just reading. I'm in torture myself, and I'm in all of these breast cancer groups. And somebody wrote in the group last night that she was listening to somebody talk, and she said, you know what? Let me just go get my mammogram. And as a result of that, she got diagnosed. And so you literally are saving people's lives. I know mine was a routine mammogram. I didn't get my mammogram um, during the pandemic. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to put my mother at risk or whatever. But I forced myself to just, gosh, I got to get this done. So I went. So it was a routine mammogram. And they caught it early. And I didn't have to have chemo. I didn't have to have radiation. I am fortunate if you catch it early. And that's why we need to talk about it and make sure people are getting the stupid test, because as stupid as it is, and there are a lot of people advocating for different things, sonograms, ultrasounds, of MRIs, breast MRIs, and there are other therapies that we have to get um, the insurance to make the standard of care,
Mm.
but you got to get it tested. And also, we need to do it probably earlier, especially if there's a history in your family. You need to start screening earlier.
I think one of the I'll make 2 points. One about sharing the story, and then the other about I only can think of it as like north to south to north to south, right? So I'll start with the end and then work backwards. No pun in there. But when you said that, if someone in your family has breast cancer, then the probability that the next generation would, on the male side, would have prostate, or could be at risk for prostate, and then they could pass that on to the next generation, but it would sort of go back up to like breast cancer, and then so that sort of flip-flopping.
Well, that flip flopping is because it's mother to son, father to daughter.
Wow. And so again, when you share this, and for the record, I had a conversation with Andrea a couple of months ago where again I met you 5 years ago, but actually we actually met in person, right? We had like a little meetup in Long Island, and
Mhm.
a couple of us, and that was where I first met you. And then I met you right after you had the procedure, and we chatted for a while, and you were sharing this, and I said, honestly, it's the first time I had heard that it could go from, and now I'm thinking Langston Hughes, but mother to son, or like then father to daughter. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on is this platform that I'm using right now, this opportunity to bring inspirational leaders, is not necessarily, I wasn't always reaching for the president of this or the leader of that. I was reaching the initial intent of this program was to take people who would have conversations that I believed were important to share, and their thinking was, nobody wants to hear that. Why is that important? I want to keep that to myself because it's private. And I remember saying to someone who um, actually had experienced or went through a cancer journey, at the time that she was diagnosed, and I guess when it was in remission, and I gingerly, like you said, you don't go to people and you ask like, what's the issue, can you tell me, because they want to keep it private. And I remember saying, at some point in the future, I would really like to have a conversation with you about it, so that this can be shared, so that other people know what to look for. And she knew my humility at that moment, because I literally, my body was hunched over, because I felt I have no right to
Mhm.
ask, but I'm begging you. I don't know what to look for. And I know there are many other people who don't know. Please, at some point, can I have a conversation? And she lovingly was like, okay, I'll think about it.
But it's delicate because a lot of times it's about
Right.
timing. So I want to thank you for coming to check on me, because you said, you know what, I understand that you're probably not up for company. I just want to come by and say, you know, lay eyes on you or whatever.
That's what
And
I said.
there was a long time where I didn't want eyes laid on me. I needed to be still, and I needed to have my this connection, with my higher power. I needed to be away, but you respected my timing and came at a time where I was ready to receive and ready to talk about it. So I really appreciate that. And I know that it was no short distance. I don't live around the corner from you, so I appreciate that too.
And
Um,
and as I said, I'm coming in, leaving. Remember, I kept saying, I said, I'm not coming to sit under your table. I'm not coming to have tea. I'll stand in the driveway. I don't want to, share anything that I may have, because I don't know what's going on. I just want to leave. I want to leave coming. Just let me
yeah,
put my eyes on you.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that, you respecting that boundary, and then still lovingly say, I want to come see you. I want to just stop by, just do a drive by. I appreciate that. Um, but a lot of it is really about timing. People have to, you know, I know for me early on, I needed to process it myself. And then, I needed to share with the people closest to me because Lord knows if my son is watching, he better know everything that's going on because he can't find out about it through somebody else. I needed to have that conversation with him. And, my family. Um, and then people have questions. So what are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And all of that. Oh, when I first told some people that were close to me and they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it till I know what
Mm,
I'm going to do because this is not a decision that I'm crowdsourcing. I'm not asking for opinions.
right,
I am going to look for the medical team that I feel most comfortable with, and then I'm going to make a decision. I am not looking for opinions.
right.
And so, after that, I had made peace with, I had found a medical team that I felt comfortable with, which was no easy task. And I made a decision, which was easier once I found a team that I was comfortable with. Um, then I could, and I had a conversation with God, and we were aligned, and I understood, telling me, okay. And I'm like, I got you, I hear you, I see you. Um, uh, then I could talk about it.
I think I it is courageous for us in this generation to, and I'll use this phrase, to be bold and unapologetic about our own health and not to leave it up to, um, let's just say, our divine source as whatever will be, but that there are action steps, and you definitely have taken the necessary journey of reaching out to medical practitioners who could support you and then sharing with your family. I would say that you and I are at a we're at a community level and a professional level and an access level that is probably not available to a good number of people. So for you to say, I can choose between, like, let's say this facility or this type of practitioner or whatever. And some people may be like, well, my medical coverage, or I may not necessarily know. And so I'm glad that this conversation is happening because as it can be shared with many people, at least saying, hey, I may feel something, or hey, I don't know. I until you told me, I didn't know about the BRCA. Is it BRCA or BRCA?
I say BRCA. I don't know how. Yeah,
Okay. Not until you told me about the BRCA 1 and BRCA 2, and I put it in the chat. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about the father to daughter and the son to mother. I didn't know about that. But now I can at least have the conversation and start also asking my elders who are still with me. So, how did grandma
yes.
pass?
Let me tell you something.
Who knows?
I went through my from my grandmother and all my father's siblings. How do they die? What do they have? Do they have any? And they were yes, yes, yeah. What? Anyway, yes, you need to have those conversations. And the one other thing that I wanted to say is that I've talked a lot about supporting Black women, supporting Black people, supporting women. So I know that you know that I am a strong advocate. However, and even immigrants, all of that. But I got three opinions. The first team that diagnosed me, um, that was a mess. I was literally getting the mammogram, my top uncovered, and someone runs into the room and is like, you have a copay. And I'm like, okay, back up. I'll pay you. You're about to put my tata in between two metal plates. You're gonna get your money. You gotta get dressed.
Right. Like, can you wait? You go get your money. Let me get
Yeah.
this thing over
So,
with.
so I
Wow,
was
that's
I was
rude.
over I was over them. I'm like, mm-mm. And then I made, I had this one nurse. I need to circle back to her. She was so great. Um, pushy Asian woman. Um, and she was like, I need to get you into this doctor, to the surgeon. And I'm like, why do I got to see a surgeon? Anyway, that's a whole other story. We could go on for another hour. But the surgeon was like, I'm moving offices. I can't see you this week. Maybe next week. I'll call you back. Yeah, I can't talk right now. And I'm like, listen, I'm not waiting for you to renovate your office.
Right.
No, on to the next. So I went to a world renowned cancer center that everyone, probably, especially in the New York area, first comes to
Right.
mind. You got to go to blah, blah, blah.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I said, oh, I want to find a black woman. I want a black woman. And I looked and I found a black woman and I went to her and that wasn't it. And it's interesting. It's not because she wasn't credentialed. It's not because I didn't try. It was the system. And we didn't
Wow.
click. And I didn't feel like if I needed to be on the table and she needed to make a decision on my behalf, that she would make
Mm.
a decision that I would want made. So I was like, I'm gonna keep looking, and then somebody else. So I belong to a community organization of Black women
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that has 50 people in the chapter, and out of those 50 people, five of us had gone through the same thing. So I got a recommendation for a team that I love, 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 love. I felt comfortable with, and it's three white men,
Wow.
and they're the best thing, and I feel comfortable with them, and it is what it is. So, as much as I stand for underrepresented communities, at the end of the day, especially when you're on your healthcare journey, you have to do what you feel is right for you, and I think all things being considered, everybody that I talked to was eminently qualified. Their institutions were premier
Right.
institutions,
Highly sought after. Mm-hmm.
but
Top
I
notch.
needed to go where I felt comfortable and
R-
where they treated me as a whole person. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Right. Right. And given that you went to seek out a person that you felt represented you, and however that choice was made in the pecking order,
Hmm.
that that counts. Of course, it counts for you, it counts for all of us.
Hmm.
And at the time that you said, okay, hey, let's work. Oh, mm, let me go. And then you find somebody else. Whatever that synergy was, whatever that was, that you said, I'm gonna go with this person. This is in my mind. I don't know if it's in your mind. At least when someone says, you couldn't find, oh, no, 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 no. I went, I saw it, and then I had to I had to make a different choice. At least it wasn't like, no, I'm not gonna look, or I'm only gonna look,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so, right, because some people think, well, I'm only gonna choose this person because they're part of my community somehow, some way. But there are moments where it may not just align. And it could very well be like they're not a part of the plan. They're not a part of like your medical plan.
Oh yeah, and also they don't work in a silo. They work in a system. So I would be choosing this person and her team.
Right, right,
And I wasn't feeling the team. And if I go into a consult with you, and then people are knocking on the door like, time's up, you gotta go. I'm like, oh no, no, no. If you're too busy for me, let me tell you one thing. Go ahead, because I need somebody to spend some time on this.
right, right. I need to be able to, like, take out my tea and like sit back and relax because I need to feel the entire energy of the entire space. I
All,
totally support you on that.
all I'm saying is, look, I got 3 degrees. I got 2 master's degrees. I am not a stupid person. But what I need for you is to explain this to me until I understand. And if you're too busy to do that, then I got to go somewhere else.
That's important. That's very important, and it's more important now when people of all hues, but particularly people of color, have remember the mistreatment within healthcare, and within the clinical trials and the thinking that we have a higher pain threshold, and
And the
so the
extra food.
withholding of,
Yeah.
pain medication, all the things, right? And so, in order to rebuild our trust, those are valid questions that we are actually asking of our medical practitioners now, and they have heard the banging on the door enough that they can't just say, "Oh, look, I gotta go." They're like, "No, no, no, no." Because if I leave out of this place and you have not made me feel comfortable, the amount of people that I'm going to reach, your doors are going to be empty.
Again, I mean, I think there's a problem with our healthcare system, um, but I, I still feel like we need to stop being reactive. Like, if you don't do right by me, then I'm going to tell everybody, and you're going to get a bad reputation. No, I don't want to have to tell anybody. I want you to do right. I want it to be right. I want to get good care. I don't want to come behind and say I didn't get good care and tell everybody and mess up your career or whatever. I don't want to go through that. I want good care. And that's what, I want for everyone as well. Um, and so anyway,
I think this has been an absolutely fabulous conversation. The takeaways for me: talk to your family, ask them those questions. What do we have going on in this gene pool? Who
and
is
share your stuff too.
right, 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 and share our stuff too. And of course, even if you have to just say, I need to do this to protect our next generation. I need to say this and I need to ask these questions. Do not let our nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, grandchildren um, have go to the doctor and have something show up, or the on the front end have the doctor say, "Do you know if there is a history?" And the child go like this, "I don't know."
To me, it's like you crossing the street and you're only looking one way. Everybody knows you gotta look both ways, but you don't know to look the other way, so you can't see what's coming.
Right,
That's why we
right.
have to know.
So very, very powerful. I thank you so much for considering the Doria Laria Show, the Digital Couch, to be a space where you can share this tender, this information about your personal journey and how it thwarted your coins to go to a cause that counts for yourself. I just came up with that. And that you are very purposeful and in intent on s- on putting your money not just for the answers for you, but the answers for the next generations. And that is very, very important for us as whoever we are to say, to really believe that we may not be in the research lab, we may not have the science degrees, but we can take the same money that we can put into temporary things like extra clothing or extra furniture or an extra cup of Starbucks, shameless plug, and put it into something that's going to actually have much longevity and much life lasting, um, benefits for all of us. So I thank you so much for joining us. I want you to just stay around for a moment. I'm going to say goodbye to the community. For
Can
those,
I say
yes.
one more
Oh,
thing
please,
before we
definitely.
go? I just
Oh,
wanted
and
to.
also tell us again. Let me put up your link again of where you're going to be.
Oh yeah, so
And yes,
The
yes, yes.
New York City Femtech Salon. You can go to my website, AndreaLHenderson.com. Also, I'm going to be selling shirts that say financial feminist because someone called that to me and it stuck. I'm like, yes, I have issues with the regular feminist, but the financial feminist, I think I like it. So stay tuned on that. But one thing that I want to say is you said that it thwarted my dollars, and it really didn't. It's a different asset class because I'm not expecting to lose my money. I'm actually expecting to get a return on my investment. Um,
Yes.
so just wanted to put that out there too.
You. So, for those people who may have a question or a comment, or if you definitely want to contact Andrea, you see her in the ticker below, AndreaLHenderson.com, AndreaLHenderson.com. If it has to do with venture capital, if it has to do with HR, if it has to do with C-suite strategies, board development, getting the melanin faces into the C-suite spaces. Yes, I just made that up as well. Uh, this is the person that you definitely should approach, and you should reach out to. Bring her in to speak, bring her in to do the things that she does very, very well. I'm proud to have you as a colleague, as a fellow shepreneur, as a part of Team 21. And we'll probably most likely get some of our other Team 21 sister friends, the sister mind, right? The sister mind up on the screen in order to show their great work. And so, again, I thank you all, and look out for us in the upcoming days. We have a wealth of amazing people coming up. And for those people who are interested in even getting this type of a platform started for yourself, for your own business, for your own sharing of wealth and knowledge, then you're going to see more information from me about the 5-day Launch Your Live Stream Challenge, which you will see some information about in the upcoming days. So peace and blessings. This is a Learn to Grow You moment where I plant seeds to help you grow. I want you to always make sure that the word that you speak can inspire, influence, and impact the lives of others. And I will see all of you, and I mean all of you, in the next place and time. Just keep watching. Okay? Have a great day.